Well, today on Rural Q+A, I've got Ricky Alabaster. He's come down from the hills in Taihape to chat through his story and the merits of leasing country as a pathway to farm ownership. And also, I think, the merits of leasing full stop from a landowner's point of view. But Ricky, I think just to kick the ball off, you're the kind of chap you hear a lot about before you meet. You've got an enormous reputation for hard work, and you're farming not only here in Taihape, you're also on the East Coast as well. But tell us a little bit about your story. Obviously, you made a few shearing finals in your day, but in the early times, but you've done a lot of farming since then. So why don't you join the dots for us and tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, well, I obviously grew up on a farm and was managing for 14 years, managing stations, and an opportunity come about to lease
Up in Taihape?
Up in Taihape to lease 1,100 acres.
Yep.
And we actually kept my full-time job managing, and we did it on the weekends to try and get ahead. Did that for a couple of years.
1,100 acres part-time?
Part-time, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, tried to do everything as low cost as we could.
Yep.
And that kick-started us to eventually start growing.
And from there, when did you transition from managing to actually full-time farming on your own account?
2 years.
Okay.
2 years, yep.
So what made that lease work so well for you?
Whether you call it good luck or whatever, but we had a couple of really good years.
Yeah.
Everything we made over those 2 years, we just bought stock with it and just gave us a bit of a head start, really.
And ploughed it all back in?
Yeah, yep.
So that's not your first lease. How many leases have you had in the last 10 years?
Over the last 10 years would be 4 different properties.
Right.
3 of them in Taihape, and we also ventured over to the coast.
So how many are you leasing currently?
3.
That's in addition to your property station you now own, Kowhainui.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. When did you buy that?
Bought that about 5 years ago. We leased that just for a year while it was on the market. And we eventually bought that a year later.
Oh. So I'm picking, there wasn't actually any land to start with when you started your farming career.
No, there wasn't, no.
And it's something like close on 10,000 ewes, so it's what, 12,000 plus stock units?
Yeah, Kowhainui is, yeah.
Yeah, well done. So, given your success with it, and and it's not also, it isn't just like many things, overnight success taking you about 10 years and some.
Yep.
Why do you think leasing gets such a bad rap?
I think, the bad raps come from maybe the leasee taking what they can from the land and not putting a lot back, but I wouldn't say it's always the leasee's fault. Maybe the model of the lease isn't quite set up to allow them to put a bit back into the farm itself, and I think that's really important. Like, everyone's got to do all right out of it, the owner, the leasee, but also the land itself. Like, you've got to look after the land and keep improving it, otherwise things just fall down around the years,
So you spoke to me previously about the model. So if there's one thing that a lease needs to have in a model for you to take on, what is that?
Input from the owner and the leasee to come together so the farm can keep getting developed and improved.
Yeah. And so for that to work, I'm picking a short-term lease isn't much use to anybody.
No, it's not, because otherwise you fall back into
short-term
thinking. Yeah, where you want it longer.
So ideally, what would the ideal lease look like in terms of term?
Would have to be close to 10 years.
Yeah.
So then it gives you time to get a feel for the land and put, being able to implement things and
invest up front.
Yeah.
You get the return, they get the asset.
Yep.
One closing comment from me. Clearly, you've developed a very successful model both on the East Coast up there in Wirral and over in more recently Wirral, but a long time over in the Taihape region. If you thinking to the future, it would occur to me those farmers that have still got a passion for pastoral farming, but just physically are finding the whole job, it is a demanding role. And I wonder, if there's the one thing that they could be thinking about is maybe considering that earlier rather than later, because sometimes if they were thinking about it maybe in their 50s and 60s rather than their 70s, it would give people like you more opportunity.
Yeah, it does, and it's another option for them too to be able to keep their farm, you know, and someone farming it that's going to keep improving the asset. So it's got, you know, win-win for both really.
So if you look at the returns in farming and you look at the values of the stations in Taipei, which you now own and farm, you look back 10 years, they certainly haven't got any cheaper in the last 10 years.
No, heading one way, aren't they?
So it's hard to see the downside. You can improve the current returns, you work alongside them, and ultimately you be a good custodian of the asset. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and you've got to have that good relationship
Okay.
to make it work.
So are you all done with leasing, or are you interested in more?
No, always interested in more. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ricky, for coming along. And from a property broker's perspective, we are very much interested in working with landowners and looking at the options, particularly if it gives them more options and we see more and more land retained in pastoral land use, anything and everything we can do to get that next generation. One closing thing for me is from your farming business, your son Ruben is pretty handy with the handpiece and pretty keen on farming, is he? How did he go at the Golden Shears recently?
Yeah, no, he's pretty passionate about his shearing. He moved up to the senior grade last year, and
What, tender age 18 or something, wasn't
he was 16. 16, yeah, and got second in the senior grade.
he?
So
That's amazing. That's great. Oh, well, the future's looking good, and thanks, Ricky, for coming along.
cheers, Conrad. Thank you.